Hello and welcome everybody to our Procura Plus webinar series on socially responsible ICT procurement. I'm very happy today to share with you 3 of our 5 case studies of good practice within the MakeICTFair Project. This project is running for the last 3 years now, and it's almost concluding, so I think we have interesting insights to share with you. I am your moderator for today. My name is Vera Loppenberger. I work for ICT Local Governance for Sustainability. Before we jump in, I would like to give you a brief introduction on GoToWebinar. You are muted right now, the audience is muted, but you can ask questions during the webinar. To do so, you can press the raise your hand button here, or you can also type your question in the question section below. I would also like to let you know that the webinar will be recorded. We do so to put it on our website afterwards, so people who couldn't join us today will have the chance to listen to the webinar afterwards. Okay, let's start with our speakers for today. You can see Paula Land, my colleague. She also works for ICT. She's a Sustainability and Procurement Officer. Then I also introduced myself already. I'm a junior officer for ICT. Then we have Carla Canal. She's an International Relations Officer for the Barcelona City Council. We have Rudy de Vries. He's a Senior Sustainable Policy Officer for the Municipality of Haarlem. And then we have Eileen Siefhold. She's a Sustainability Advisor for the City of Stavanger. So a brief introduction on the MakeICTFair Project. It aims to reform manufacturer and mineral supply chains through policy, finance, and public procurement. It's a 3-year EU project, and it aims to pilot advanced, socially responsible public procurement of ICT products and services. So therefore, we have our 5 case studies of good practice. We have Barcelona, Haarlem, Stavanger, APUC Scotland, and Stockholm. And I already gave you a hint on the presentations today with our speakers. So the first session will be about the 3 case studies, Barcelona, Haarlem, and Stavanger. Our topic will be on the way towards social criteria. So we're talking about steps towards including social criteria in ICT procurement tenders. They are all in an earlier stage, so they will share their insights and lessons learned on their path so far. Then we have our second session in December 10th, about APUC Scotland and Stockholm. And then it will be about keeping the social criteria alive and how to follow up through contract management. So you can stay tuned for December 10th. But what can you expect from today's webinar? The first session, after my welcome and introduction, Paula Land will talk about the Procura Plus network. Then we have Carla Canal talking about the Barcelona case study. She will also talk about how market engagement helps to include social criteria. Then we will have Rudy. He will present the Haarlem case study. He will also talk a little bit more about facing internal challenges on the way towards social criteria. And then Eileen will talk about Stavanger and how to include social criteria, their path so far, and how the market responded to them. Afterwards, you will have time for questions. You can also ask them after each presentation, and we will probably end around 11:30, 11:45, depending on how many questions you will have. And now I will hand over to my colleague Paula.
Great, thanks a lot, Vera. And thank you all for joining. I quickly want to put on my presentation so I can fully focus. All right. Can you see my presentation?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. Seems like
Yes,
I can't properly see it myself, but I think it will be fine. Let's see. Yes, it does change. Okay, sorry for the quick hiccup. So yeah, thanks Vera for the introduction, and thanks everyone for joining this Procura Plus webinar today. I think we'll be hearing from 3 great examples of Procura Plus participants that have worked on including social criteria in their tenders. And I just want to give you a quick overview of what the Procura Plus network is. And what we do as a network, so you can have a bit of an idea what the framework of this is, and if this is interesting for you as a city or a public organization, you can also get in contact with me afterwards. But I'm going to try to keep it short, so we have most of the time dedicated to our 3 good case studies today. So yeah, my name is Paula Land. I'm an officer at ICTFair in the team of Sustainable Economy and Procurement. And in this, I'm in part responsible for the Procura Plus network. So what is the Procura Plus European Sustainable Procurement Network? It is a network that aims to connect cities, to enable them to exchange and to act on sustainable procurement. So we like to say we are a network of European public authorities that connect, exchange, and act on sustainable and innovation procurement. And the combined knowledge within this network allows us to provide advice, support, and publicity to any public authority that wants to implement sustainable innovation procurement. And we also would like to put a strong emphasis on the fact that we want to act together. So we want to enable procurers to come together and take steps towards sustainable procurement. The network has been around for 16 years now. We are represented in 16 countries, or 16 countries are participants in the network. This is a total of 46 participants at the moment. And by this, we like to say that we represent 63 million of the European population. So just for you to get an idea, on this map, you can see an overview of where all our participants, public authorities that are participating in the network are located. You can see it's quite widespread throughout Europe, and we're always looking to expand this network because we want to have procurers get together to discuss the topics that are at the top of their mind that relate to sustainable procurement, and not only talk about them, but also really work together on solutions to exchange how they have tackled certain obstacles and introduced in sustainability and innovation. And we're open to big to small cities. For us, it's really important that the procurers themselves get the chance to work on the topics that are most important to them. So how do we do this? We have a series of events that we organize, for example, Procura Plus seminars that provide an opportunity for face-to-face exchange on sustainable procurement. This is where we put a strong emphasis on working together. We also organize these webinars as the one we're attending today. We have roughly 2 or 3 per year. And we also host the Procura Plus conference series. This was formerly the Eco Procure conference series. Of course, some of these activities have stalled in the moment that we're in right now. As you know, a lot of things have shifted online, and we're in this transition as well, but especially bigger conferences, of course, had to be put on pause. But the Procura Plus conference is the only European-wide forum to promote exchange and dialogue amongst all involved in SBP, from purchasers, suppliers to policymakers. And it's one of the biggest conferences in Europe dedicated to this topic. What we also like to do with our participants is to involve them in new opportunities, such as European Horizon 2020 projects, other proposals and calls. So we want to give them opportunities to be involved in these projects and also get funding through projects like this. A core initiative that we always like to promote are our Procura Plus Awards. Each year we award in 3 or 4 categories the procurements of the year. So one of these categories is the Sustainable Procurement Award. And actually we have a winner of this award with us today. The City of Haarlem has won this award in 2020. for their initiative to cooperate with the market in introducing social and also sustainability criteria. So this is a really great achievement, and we will soon be opening applications for the next year's award. And keep an eye on the website. The call is not out yet, but we're really looking forward to receiving a new set of great examples of how sustainability and innovation can be achieved through procurement. Other activities that we do is that we bring together interest groups of procurers that want to work on a specific topic for a longer time frame. At the moment, we have an interest group on circular procurement running. This has started in May. The group is coming together at the end of November again to discuss specific aspects that relate to circular procurement and to work together on how to include circular criteria in tenders, etc. So we don't stop there. We also provide advice and guidance. We have a newsletter that comes out 3 times a year. It's the Procura Plus update. It has just been sent last week. You can also find it on the website. And otherwise, we have also the Procura Plus manual, which is a manual for public authorities to implement sustainable procurement, which you can also find at our website. We are a global initiative, so we have partner sister networks in Africa and East Asia. Procura Plus Africa has just been launched last year, and Procura Plus East Asia has been launched in 2018. They are doing similar activities to ours, but working in their local contexts, of course. I'm going to jump over the slide. And with the look to time, I'm going to end this presentation here. I wanted to introduce 2 examples of cities that are leading the way in sustainable procurement, one of them being Barcelona. But really, you are going to hear from 3 great cities today, so I think it's time to give them the stage. But if you are interested in the work that Procura Plus is doing, then please connect, go on the website, visit the Sustainable Procurement platform, or the Innovation Procurement platform. This is where you find all information about the Procura Plus network and its activities, and otherwise get in contact with me and ask any questions you have. But that's all for me. Thank you.
Thank you, Paula, for your introduction. I will now hand over to Carla with the first case study. I'll make your presenter, Paula, right now.
Yes, can you see my presentation?
Yes.
Yes, great. Okay, so I'm gonna talk about the case of Barcelona in MakeICTFair Project. So Barcelona City was already affiliate of Electronic Watch, but we were invited to participate in the pilot project to go a step further in transparency to mining. So thanks to MakeICTFair Project, we organized a general market engagement event in Barcelona that was in parallel with the Mobile Social Congress. And I said thanks to MakeICTFair Project because we would not have done it if they were not pushing us. So we were at the end we were really happy to have done this meeting. But at the beginning, we were not used to do this kind of general meetings with the sector and with the industry. So yeah, I just wanted to souligner that we were not used to having this kind of meetings, and it went really well. I mean, the industry, and also inside the city council, we were. Yeah, we were surprised of how things went in the meeting and after, because after several companies contact us to explain, yes, in more detail their policies, and it was really useful to have this dialogue also after, during the meeting and after. So the thing is that we had 2 tenders planned. One was mostly computers, so for people working in the Barcelona City Council, And the other one, a bigger one, was for the new data processing center. I will really shortly present both because we had different procedures, and also like the final, the end was also different. So the first tender was a supply of computers equipment with measures of sustainable public procurement. It was from 2019 to 2020. Well, it was an open harmonized contract, and we have done 3 lots, and there were 5 bidders in the first lot, 3 in the second, 4 in the last one. And we had already the contract performance clauses of Electronics Watch, because they are compulsory in all Barcelona city tenders, even though sometimes we find one tender that we didn't follow up and they forget to put it, but in 90% they are present, the clauses. So in addition of the clauses, we include 2 award criteria to start sending a message to the sector. Yes, I wanted to explain that it was they were two small award criteria, but it was the first time that we put it like this. So I mean, we were happy to put it, but we know it is not enough. No? So I think it was something written like this, like to have a public policy that covers the entire life cycle. So smelter, refinery, and mining was included. But this we didn't include before, or we didn't include in Electronics Watch. And like in accreditation, we just put like the web address to get this policy, and if the bidders were distributors, they had to certify that the manufacturer had also like this kind of public policy. So yeah, I just wanted to say that during this pilot, MakeICTFair was developing the guide. And the guide has much better examples and possibilities that we will definitely look for other tenders. But in this case, like the final legal check, they just put this. So well, we were happy because it was just a start. Well, we were not really happy, but it was a start. So for the second tender, it was like different because we published a preliminary market consultation, which I think it was a very good idea. So it was for the procurement of a new data processing center, and it was a bigger tender. And they include like 3 questions, like they include like a whole section about social responsibility in the supply chain. Also, the legal check that they choose the questions, but it was good that for the first time in a preliminary market consultation, we put like a whole section about social responsibility in the whole supply chain. So this was good, but the final report and also like the decisions that were taken after was not did not follow like this kind of representation, no? Because the final report of this preliminary market consultation, they said 14 companies that responded, only 7 had answered this block of questions of social responsibility in the supply chain. Well, that the answers were like quite different if it was a manufacturer or if it was a supplier or a service provider, because there was like hardware and it was also services in this big tender. And most of the manufacturers said, well, that they had already their own codes, that they were already in a RBA, and yeah, more or less, one of the conclusions, if not the whole city council agreed with this, but finally they say, well, if all that can present they have already, apart from Responsible Business Alliance, like the Mining Responsible Initiative. So they were saying, like, if it will be not so important because we cannot do more than this. I mean, Barcelona City Council will not be able to do follow-up more than this. So the results of the consultation and also other issues, other considerations, led to the decision finally not to include any criteria related to transparency up to mining. So it was like really unfortunate. So in the first tender, yes, we include something, but in this tender, for many reasons, but one of the reasons was this analysis that not everybody shared, was to not to include. So I also wanted to say this because when cities are starting, I mean, this happens. No, sometimes there are tenders when you get to go one step further, and the other tender, instead of going 2 steps further, we go again at the beginning. No, so it's a shame, but it's a reality. So a few learnings and reflections. I really think we shared also with other colleagues these learnings. And if you really want to influence the market, it is important to bring up these issues every time you talk with the sector. So it has to be like a subject that they really understand that it is important to you. I mean, it has to be important to you, and you have like to keep on saying it, even if you have meetings that maybe it's not about this subject. You have to keep on saying it so they remember also, because we have to change the priorities we had before. So in our case, we have only done this a few times, so we have not always that we talk with industry, we send this message. Also, one of the learnings was that we should do a new training inside the city council, so all the technicians have the same discourse, or yeah, because we think we might not be sending a clear enough message to the industry. So some technicians, because they have worked more in this, or we have already told them, they do send this message, but others they just doesn't know it is a priority, and they don't say. So we lack a little bit also of awareness inside the organization. So we think we are really far from our goal, so we should prioritize it more. And also we need to be more innovative, more demanding. And after doing monitoring or auditing and evaluations, we should take action. Right now, Barcelona City Council is not doing enough social audits. Maybe we are doing other kind of audits, or we are going also further in environmental issues, but not on social issues along the whole chain. So here, yes, maybe we do quite a follow-up, but not in the whole chain. So also, I just wanted to share with you that until now, we have never applied contract penalties related to due diligence in respect for human rights through the chain. I mean, we haven't had the opportunity yet, but we are looking forward to do it. And also, we have to remember that we are in a climate emergency and a human rights emergency, so we should do more and faster. I mean, yeah, it's true that Barcelona City Council aims to strengthen social and ecological standards, and we are doing a few steps, but we are still far from achieving that goal, so we should do more. Market dialogue was an important tool for understanding current practices and talking more about these issues with industry. And what is helping us a lot is electronic watch contract clauses, and the network. It's helping us to go further. And yeah, as we said in the beginning, we are in the preliminary situation, and yeah, we need to be more demanding, insistent, and innovative. I think the guide that I MakeICTFair and Procura Plus guide of social criteria in ICT, it's quite innovative and it's really useful. And yeah, that we are still far from guaranteeing these minimum social and environmental conditions through the life cycle, and especially in mining. So yeah, I encourage every other city to do the same, because we were not used or prepared to do that, and we kind of have done a little steps, thanks also to the help of the network. That's it. Hello?
Well, thank you very much, Carla, for this really interesting presentation. I think, yeah, you shared some valuable insights, and thank you also for your honesty that there's still many obstacles on the way, but I think you're on a good path in the right direction. Yes, now the audience can ask questions. If you have a question about this specific case study, you're welcome now to type in the question, or you can press the raise the hand button. I see that there's already a question regarding the video and the slides. Yes, they will be uploaded on the website, but on the Procura Plus website, not the eClay website. So just to let you know again. And yes, now you can ask questions. There is one question. Has there been any follow-up on the tender one? Has the follow-up reached the mining part of the supply chain? Would be the question for you, Carla.
Yes, yes. We are still addressing this follow-up. Actually, we have a meeting in the next 2 weeks to address follow-up, even though actually the award criteria didn't, I mean, yeah, it helps us, of course, doing the follow-up, because they give some policy transparency, but we will use these and also electronic watch clauses as they are more in the hold on, in performance clauses, no contract performance clauses. So yes, both things will help us to do the follow-up now.
Mm-hmm. Any more questions? You're still welcome to type them in. I would have a question about the market engagement event. So what do you think is the state of art right now on the market? Would you say it's challenging for them, or it's challenging but feasible? Is it not doable at all? What do you think?
Well, I think the industry is capable of doing transparency. They should be, even though they say no, but when you talk with them, they say yes. So we should definitely ask for more. Also, they say, I would be more transparent if you ask it compulsory to everybody, but if I am starting to be transparent and the others are not, I'm like losing some kind of, so I think we should really be more strict and ask for more transparency to everybody, so that there are some companies or some industries that they would definitely show us that yes, it is possible to be transparent. So yes, I don't know if I'm answering the question, but
yeah,
that's what I think.
Okay. Yeah, thank you for your answer. I see some other questions. Kim is asking, were you also referring in your tenders to initiatives like responsible mining initiative for more responsible sourcing of minerals? If not, are there some reasons for it?
No, I just refer to that one because in
Should I repeat the question?
Yeah, I mean, you're referring to two different initiatives of responsible mining, isn't it? Yeah. I just refer to one because in the answers of the industry to the, not to the market engagement, to the preliminary market, the one that you do written in the official procedures, they talk about this. So okay, I have here somewhere the report, the final report of the of the consultation, of the public consultation, and they refer to RBA and to responsible. Okay, let me say it right. Hold on. So, I mean, what I wanted to say, I mean, I don't want to write it like this, but what I wanted to say is that for us, it's not enough to be in RBA and in this responsible mineral aspect. Hold on, I'm gonna say the name, exact name. Well, I cannot find now the report. Well, what I wanted to say is that it is not enough to be in RBA or in the other mining initiative, as everybody is there, all the industry is there, and we can see what are the problems of the industry now. So I think these initiatives also have to improve and go further and be more, I mean, show that we are really changing these issues, because right now we are still not changing the issues. So I mean, okay, I think the question was this: no, if it was enough, for us, it is not. Well, for us, apart from the city council, because the legal check said, yeah, we cannot ask more than this because we cannot check more than this. But I think with a good follow-up or with initiatives like Electronics Watch, yes, you can follow more than this, more than RBA and more than mining, responsible mining initiative. And yes, there are others.
There's one last question, and then I would say we keep going. Sorry, I didn't want to interrupt you. But yeah, one last question for you, Carla. It is, how can we, or can you monitor? So it's about the monitoring of the social criteria.
Well, I think you
would like to answer that now.
Yeah, just to monitor, I think it's important to go to work with a network. So you find other cities. I mean, it's a little bit like Electronics Watch work. Is that we cannot afford to do a social audit every time that we have a small tender. Like, I mean, maybe we can do a social audit once for a small tender like 1 million, but we cannot do it every year or 3 times a year. When sometimes to do a good follow-up to see if things are changing, you should do a follow-up really every 3 months. So in order to be more efficient and in order to have more impact, we should do it together with other administrations. So we put together our resources and we do a follow-up that it really changed something, no? So yeah, as we cannot afford every 3 months but ask someone there to see if things are really improving. We should do it together with other partners. or contributes to a network. Yes.
Okay, there are some more questions about this topic. I think that's an interesting topic, but I will now hand over to our second speaker for today, and we will come back to the questions afterwards and have a little discussion about that, because I think there is need for it right now. But thank you again, Carla, for your interesting presentation. And I will now switch to Rudy.
Hello, good morning.
Hello, Rudy. You should be able to share your screen now.
Yeah. Good morning, everybody. I will start my presentation, and I hope everybody can see that then. And do you see the right one now, or we have to change it?
You can change it to make it a full screen. Because right now we see it a little small.
This is better?
Yes, perfect. Yes.
Okay. Well, I will send this. Okay. Well, good morning, everybody. I will follow up, tell the story about social and sustainable procurement in our city and our experiences till now. And well, I just gonna start. Well, I'm Rudy de Vries. Well, you can see that. That's my picture. And well, and then I have to click that button. Oh yeah. Well, this is I will start with a note on the procurement and the strategic procurement policy we have, and then I will follow up with some internal and organizational issues we had, and maybe you can learn something from it. And then I will have some practical notes on market engagement sessions, and then I will have a few on how we try to tender this products we want for our ICT department. So and then afterwards there you will be able to ask some questions, of course. Well, the introduction, the city of Haarlem. Well, Haarlem is a city in the Netherlands, nearby Amsterdam, and well, we are a middle-sized city, but we do a lot about procurement. We are the action leader of the EU Urban Agenda on Innovation and Responsible Public Procurement this year. And I can tell you something about it. We have an e-learning module on strategic procurement and innovation procurement, of course, which will be next week will be live. And well, if you want something, want to have the link for the e-learning, you can email me, and the email is in the presentation. Well, first I start with the story about, well, the views on public procurement, of course. Well, normally traditional public procurement is just a way to purchase goods, works and services. And the next step in public procurement was that was about in the beginning of 2000s, end of 90s, to help the public procurement has to help to comply to rules and regulations, like which is very important to be fair to the market, that everybody could be a bidder and have to do but the rules about in that the European rules. And the newer way of thinking about public procurement, that is a strategic means to achieve general policy goals. So you have something to choose. Do you want to have an eco-friendly wash stuff, or do you want to have very cheap ones? You have so public procurement is a way to achieve other general policy goals. Remember that. The next. And so we wrote down our public procurement policy already, and we included not only economic teams in it, but also social and sustainable teams in our policy. So if we do a procurement, we want to achieve goals on economic, social and sustainable goals, and that is very important to keep that in mind for the also for the tender of ICT. That is very important. And I will lead us in with the is the ICT department on board? I mean, our city, we have budget owners, and budget owners they have a very important voice in where and how to buy which devices. And if the budget owner is very is in, then it's easier to go to the strategic goals. My lesson learned, and I'm in this now for, I guess, almost 20 years, and first with the City of Amsterdam, and now the last 10 years with the City of Haarlem, is that budget owners in ICT can be very traditional. We have to have good computers, good screens, and it doesn't matter what their performance is on sustainable or social or fair things. But that changed in our city because the budget owner, the head of ICT, is really committed to the strategic goals, and he uses that also by telling the people working in the department that these goals are important for them. So everybody should work together to go to the strategic goals. And which was very important that we had these market engagement meetings, which were very fruitful. A lot of attendees of bidders, of possible bidders from the industry, and everybody could see that things could work out pretty good. So that was one thing. So the ICT department is on board. So a check mark behind that. And the next issue was about the security. Security is getting more and more important, of course, in ICT. We don't want data leaks. Because we have very vulnerable information of our citizens and companies working in our city. So it's very important to have like guaranteed security updates for the hardware, and the software has to be updated regularly for a guaranteed period. And that can be an issue if you want some special circular products, or you want your products have to be from a longer lifespan. Then the security update can be a problem. So it's good to have good agreement with the security team about the strategic goals and how to ask the market to give those guarantees. If you don't involve the security department early enough in the discussions, then you can have last-minute problems by tendering. And another risk is that you got a too narrow choice in the market if you not thoroughly thought out the means of security updates, because it can happen that only a few hardware producers can deliver security updates for, let's say, more as 4 years, and that can be very then you have a very narrow choice, and then what kind of tender you will have then. So we had a lot of discussion on this theme. I think we had a good solution. The market consultation. Carla already told something about the market consultation, or the market engagement meeting they had in Barcelona. We had also a few. We had one on fair and one more on circular procurement of ICT. And we learned that the market consultation is really a key element for building up a good tender. we learned that the industry was very interested, so there was a high, a lot of possible bidders came to the both meetings, and I learned that the ICT department, the procurers were very, very not surprised, but very happy about that, and they could really feel that circular and fair tendering of ICT can be a good way, and the industry can comply to that. So we had a really fruitful market consultations. That's in general. And what we learned for practical things about the market consultation was start with a good introduction. Tell what you want, tell your story about circular or social or fair with a good introduction, so the people who attend the market and gets it exactly know in what kind of frame you want to work and where you want to go. Lay out the steps where you want to go. Then we did some working sessions with in smaller groups, so those people could discuss on specific theses like security, footprint, social standards, service level, or pricing, or whatever. Pricing can be, of course, be very precarious or very difficult in a setting with your well, concurrents, other companies who are also in the market, but still you can try something. But create really a setting for open communication, innovation. Then the people can make a next step. Then we want the companies to do a next step, so we have to try to make it open. Try to engage all the participants just by dividing them in sub-working sessions, talking to them, and we ended with a wrap up with the same person. We did the introduction, what we learned from it. We asked some people from the working sessions to tell a little wrap up of their working sessions, and in the end we had to make a report, of course, to the market consultation on the tender board, so all the information is public, so everybody can learn something from that. And then the lesson learned in the tender, and the practical information is one thing, but how can we reach our goals? We learned that hardware as a service concept can be very fruitful, very interesting for if you want to have more circular products. You expand the lifespan, and it really reduces your footprint. As you can see in these pictures, also on this slide, if you maybe the slide is a little bit too small for it, but you can expand it or whatever. It's from it's an impact analysis, and you can see that extra lifespan gives you a huge profit or a smaller footprint. That's just how you want to tell that. Well, social sustainability, we learned also, it's getting more and more common. People are aware of it, but how are you going to improve it? Prove it also, just like what Carla said in the melting. What you going to report about that? That's still, I think, a long way to go. I think we should at least see as a way or a journey we have to go. Just keep asking, and in the end, in a few years, the industry will get with better answers and better solutions. Now, where are we now with our own tender? Well, it was kind of a roller coaster, our tender, actually, because we had the COVID-19 crisis. We postponed our tender, and we also had some new insight on what kind of equipment we needed through the corona crisis, because we learned maybe we need more mobile devices because people work more at home, and also there was that the Association of Netherlands Municipalities wanted to start a joint procurement on ICT equipment, and we put our thoughts on circular and fair and social in this tender, and we just did it last week. So the tender will start in a few weeks, and we hope we get that other Dutch cities will get inspired and do the same in this tender, and we have a really good result on that. But I don't know yet, and we will report about this later. And if there are any questions, I would like to hear it.
Thank you, Rudy, for your presentation and your insights. And I wish you good luck on the joint procurement that other Dutch cities will follow you on this path. And now the audience is welcome again to ask questions.
Do I see these questions or not, Vera? In my screen?
No, I'm seeing the questions, but they're
okay.
No, yeah, I will hand over the questions, but right now there is no question yet, but I just would like to give them some more minutes. Okay, they ask for an email from you to contact you directly. Maybe you could
I can
share that.
I can share that. I have to go to that box and then chat to everybody. No. Oh, I cannot chat.
Yes, you can send it to everybody.
Send question to staff. No, I cannot send to everybody. Maybe you can do that. It's not in my pane. I don't see everybody.
Yes, I will send it to everybody.
Yeah, because this this e-learning module is, I think it's very interesting. Actually, we tried it a lot. We did some tuning on that, and we made it in for the urban agenda, and well, I think it can be very learnful for procurers or other people who get to know more about strategic procurement.
Yeah, okay, I will check one more time whether there are more questions. Yes. On the social criteria, what evidence were the suppliers mentioning as means of certification they could provide?
Well, we try
answer that?
Well, actually, we have to do the tender, so we don't have any results from that, but we want them to comply to the OECD report protocol or something like that. So they have so there will be some due diligence on these parts, and that's how we're gonna ask that in the tender. So we'll see. Is that a good enough answer?
If not, the person who asked the question can ask it in more detail if you would like. But for now, there is another question. It's about the hardware as a service concept you mentioned. So you mentioned it is easier to arrange a longer lifespan of the equipment with the hardware as a service concept compared when buying the equipment. Can you explain that a little bit more? She asked.
I can explain that, because if you let's do it have a contract on hardware as a service, then the owner of the hardware and the tenderer can make money from expanding the lifespan from the equipment, and there are two cases. There are some possibilities in that. So the ICT equipment could be longer in our offices, of course, but if it doesn't can get enough security updates or is not fast enough or whatever, it doesn't really comply to the situation we need, the question we need in our offices, then the tenderer or the owner of the hardware actually can sell or use these projects also to other institutions or other schools or something like that, where they have some lower specifications on or other specifications on the equipment, so the lifespan can be more expanded. And normally when you buy it, you own it, and we are not experts on extending the lifespan. That's about the crux in this discussion. So we believe that tenderers can have more interest in expanding the lifespan, so they can make money of it.
Mm-hmm. They also asked whether you consider the extra risks for example, e-waste dumping, and how you can handle this risk.
Yeah, e-waste dumping. Well, we use some standard rules about in our procurement documents, and that's about VBEX, and that's about the electronic waste. And we believe that the suppliers can comply to that, and that they do a good thing with the electronic waste, actually. But that's it.
Okay.
I cannot tell
one
more
last question
about that.
Okay. One last question before we go on. Could you give an example of a criteria? Are they new or reused computers, or is it rent?
And how the criteria of the fair criteria, social criteria? What kind of criteria?
I think it meant, yes, yeah, it meant the social criteria you used.
Well, we use the social criteria we use now about fair. Well, it's a longer criteria, of course. One important aspect of that, we want to have to report on how they're gonna on the due diligence after 3 months, and we also need to have a monitor report after a year or another time frame. So that's and they have to report according to the OECD reporting protocols on fair, and the protocols are quite clear about that. That's what we ask, and then we can have some talks or meetings or questions asked to the tenderer by experts like the people from Electronic Watch about what they did report. Of course, that's how we try to do it now, and we hope that if a lot of cities will do that, then there will be a lot of questions asked, a lot of reports will be made, and then the journey starts of the companies to get more transparency in the supply chain of ICT, in the whole chain from the melters to the production.
Okay, yeah, to learn a little bit more in detail about social criteria included, since this was also a question right now, I think that's a good time now to hand over to our last speaker for today, because Eileen will talk about this topic, social criteria, and how the market responded to them. So thank you again, Rudy, for your presentation.
Yep.
And I will now hand over to Eileen. So, Eileen, can you share the screen? Is it possible already?
No, I can't. Well, let's see. There it is, I think. Can you see my screen now?
Yes, we can.
Perfect.
Now you just have to make it
Yeah.
full screen.
Full screen, yeah. There we go. Is it
Yes,
working?
perfect. Yes.
Good. All right. Well, hold on. Something happened. Oh, where it is? Well, now I can't see it. Hold on. Okay, there it is. All right. Thank you very much, Vera, and thank you, Rudy and Carla, for very interesting presentations as well. I'm here, as Vera said, to talk about what Stavanger did. We also had procurements this year on Fair ICT, and let me see. There we go. Sorry, it's just. Oh, there we go. So today I've just added four sections. I'll start with just what was it that we procured, and then I'll tell you a little bit about why we choose to add social criteria to this procurement. I will also tell you about the details and a little bit about what the suppliers responded. And I'll finish off, as Rudy did, with lessons learned as well. So, yeah, so in Stavanger, we have been working for quite a few years now to implement digital learning tools in the schools. And it was therefore decided that students in primary and secondary schools were to have access to Chromebooks. So we went through and had a procurement, and it was decided to use a 2 years contract with the possibility to be prolonged for 1 + 1 year. And as you can see, for this whole period of 4 years, the value was just about 3 million euros. So in this procurement, we used our contract for social procurement, and we used qualification demands, but we also used the social award criteria, and this was weighted 60%. But I will tell you more about that in a minute. I'll just tell you about a little bit how we work in Stavanger. So in Norway, the Norwegian procurement law, it requires that public buyers, where there is a risk of violating labor and human rights, that we do implement appropriate measures to avoid such risks. And being a municipality, we of course have the responsibility to care for all the people affected by our actions. So here we have, since 2009, an action plan for social procurement. And this is part of our procurement strategy. And the aim of the plan is to ensure that our procurements are made in a sustainable, a resource efficient, and a non-discriminatory way. So the plan is revised regularly, and it primarily applies to goods, but also to construction contract where there is high-risk products involved. So what we do in the end of each year, we have an overall risk assessment. It is to decide on which procurement we might include social criteria in the following year. So what we do is that we look at the country and the industry and the raw materials included in the procurements coming up. And as you can see in the middle here, there's a list of product groups that are associated with greater risks. And this list is updated in accordance to the national guidelines here, and also recommendations from Ethical Trade Norway, where we are a member. So we start looking at this list and get an overall idea, and then we keep on using like publicly available tools like the ITAC or the CSR risk check tool, and the UNICEF and Transparency International, among others, just to continue look to what materials are included, what's the risks in those countries where production are, and so on. So for this year, we saw that among others, there were several ICT procurements coming up, and the procurement of Chromebooks was the first one out. We have now also had a procurement on ICT hardware, so that includes more than just Chromebooks. It's computers and screens and other accessories. It's just about to be evaluated. And then we've also published a procurement on printers, which is leasing of printers. And both of these two are also including social criteria. So before outlining the procurement documents, we did more research on ICT. So we were using publicly available cases and reports, such as the several OECD guidelines. And we engaged in networks, such as this ICLA and Procura Plus on FAIR ICT that helped out a lot. And we also used our contacts in Ethical Trade Norway and our collaborations with other municipalities in Norway. So after outlining the documents like Barcelona and Haarlem, we also had a market dialogue. So the suppliers were able to give their response and perspective on the procurement details. For the Chromebook, we saw that the suppliers were more engaged in the environmental aspects, but not so much in the social criteria. But in the procurement of leasing of the printers, it was much more dialogue around the social criteria, which were very positive. So the details of the procurement. We normally in Stavanger we have a general contract and a specific contract that we use in all our procurements. But in these risk procurements, we also have a contract for social responsibly trading. And this contract is based on a contract from the National Procurement Institution. And it is outlined based on the UN Guiding Principles for Business and Human Rights. And it uses due diligence assessment as a method. So the contract includes 4 parts. The first one is compliance with international conventions. So there's, among others, the several ILO conventions and the UN Convention on the Rights of the Child. Second part is for the suppliers to have policies and routines to fulfill the requirements above. Third part is about how we are going to follow up the contract. So there's a list of measurements that we can implement. And of course, there's also a part of sanctions. So in case there's any violations of the three first parts, we can use these sanctions. So we also use qualification requirements to make sure that all the tenders had methods and systems in place to fulfill a contract. It means that the tender had to describe how the company works with social criteria inside the company and also in their supply chain. And as you can see, I added our qualification assessment. It's pretty small, but you can see the outline of it. So this is what we give to the suppliers, and they have to fill this in. And the first part here is about traceability. So the tenderer needs to state 2 products that they believe at the moment of delivering the tender are associated with the greatest risks of violating labor rights. They also, in the second part here, need to do an overall risk assessment of these 2 products. And in the third part, they need to describe their code of conduct and how they are following up their code of conduct. So that's for qualification to the procurement. There were also 2 technical specifications in the procurement of Chromebooks. And they were, as you can see, both applying to the manufacturer So first one is that they must follow the OECD due diligence guidelines for responsible supply chains of minerals from conflict-affected and high-risk areas. And second one was that, as Carla, I think, talked about as well, they need to be certified in accordance to the RMI, like the Responsible Minerals Initiative, or equivalent. So there were also quite a few criteria on environmental issues, and these were also here in the technical specification, but I'm just focusing on the social part today. So the contract and the qualification requirements, they secure that we were only to receive tenders that were delivering, or they could deliver in accordance to our contract. But because this was a high-risk procurement, we wanted to have a supplier that were doing a little bit extra, that they were working more to secure good conditions in their supply chain. So that's why we used award criteria. Excuse me. So we used award criteria where price was weighted 40% and the quality was 60%. And the quality was solely based on social criteria. So the social criteria was divided into four criteria, and they were all rated 25%. And we were giving them we were giving them points on a scale from 1 to 10. So first one was regarding the company's internal system for social trading. So we asked the tenderer to describe how they were working with training of employees, so they could secure that the employees were working in accordance with the firm's expectations. They were also asked to describe how they were measuring labor and human rights in relation to costs, delivery time, quality, environmental issues, and so on. And they were also asked to describe what their routines looked like for termination of contracts with manufacturers that weren't safeguarding their supply chain. So for this criteria, we received quite a lot of information. It was pretty clear that the suppliers had systems in place. And so we received information on how they secured that the employees were up to date with the company's policies and standards. It was also pretty clear that the suppliers had systems in place for dealing with suppliers that violated labor and human rights. And regarding the measurements of labor and human rights in relation to costs and delivery time, etc., they they stated that they won't compromise the ethical standards for any other permits. The manufacturer's code of conduct was the second criteria we used. So we were aiming for a high degree of transparency, and it was therefore important to know that the manufacturer and its suppliers had systems in place. So we asked for their code of conduct, and also for code of conduct of the mining industry and the extraction process and list of extraction facilities. We asked for mining sites and other locations relevant to the products. So we saw that the suppliers had chosen manufacturers with good routines, and they had developed systems. They looked like they had control of the supply chain. But we only received the information down to the melting and nothing on the mineral stage. It was somehow expected, as we know that the process of following the raw materials is pretty hard, as my two colleagues here just described as well. And the third criteria was about building relation to the supply chain. So we wanted to know if the tender was doing any capacity building in the supply chain, and we asked them to describe their program with this. We also wanted them to send us information on achieved effects of this capacity building, like number of workshops and the outcome of them, among others. And the information we received here showed different approaches to the systems of the suppliers. And we did not receive a lot of information about the effects received, but we got some. And this could indicate that the supplier takes responsibility for both the progress and the outcome of these workshops or programs that they have. Fourth criteria was about external cooperation. So we wanted to know if the tenders was working with any external organizations like non-profit organizations and any authorities to increase their impact on their supply chain. So we asked them to add their sustainability report and other evidence of collaborations. God, I'm so sorry. From our research, we knew that there were quite a few good initiatives out in this sector, and the tenders showed us that they were working with collaborations like this. They did add the sustainability reports and memberships. To mention some, there were the Global Compact, the RMI, and the RBA. But like Barcelona, we had hoped for more details on how they use third-party organizations in their supply chain. But I think that as a lesson learned, I think we might need to specify this a little bit better next time. Okay, so lessons learned. We were quite happy to receive 2 good tenders. Overall, we think that the depth of the information delivered showed that the suppliers and the manufacturers had developed system in place, and that they were working with their supply chain. We knew that we had asked for a lot of information, and as I just mentioned, we received quite a lot as well. And even with just 2 tenders, it took some time to evaluate. And we needed to take in some extra resources from Ethical Trade Norway to clarify a few things. So we were happy to see a lot of information regarding the internal routines and how they were securing social responsibility. I added a picture here of the OECD due diligence process because this is how we would like our suppliers to work. So our aim is to see that they think in line with the due diligence and that they take responsibility to get to know their supply chain, that they work together with their suppliers on social responsibility. Another thing we noticed was that some criteria was a bit difficult to evaluate. We have been working with the contract for social responsibility for a few years, and also with the qualification demand. But this was the first time using award criteria, so we will, I think, keep on using it, but we might need to develop it a little bit further and maybe be more specific about what we ask and how we will evaluate. In all industries, but especially the ones with long supply chains, we believe that pushing for more transparency will have a good impact. So this time we received 2 good tenders, but we expect that over time more and more companies will increase their control of their supply chain. And we do hope that it might also be down to mining level soon. To implement social criteria is a long time process, and it must develop together with the industry. Like Carla said, sometimes we need to push and be bold, and sometimes maybe take a step back. So it needs to be in collaborations with the industry. Well, I learned a lot listening to Carla and Rooney today, and I hope that public buyers together and also together with our suppliers can make the future more sustainable. And that's all I had, and I'm so sorry for me coughing. I hope you got most of it. Well, thank you, and over to you, Vera.
We can't hear you. Maybe you need to unmute yourself.
Okay, now you should be able to hear me.
Yeah, now it's good. Thank you.
I'm sorry. Yes, yeah, thank you very much again, Aline, for your presentation and your lessons learned. And now you can ask questions again to Aline directly about the Stavanger case, but also in general to all of our speakers if there's something still unclear. And then I would open up also the stage for a little discussion if you would like. Because we still have a few more minutes. We have maybe 10 to 15 minutes. So yeah, you can ask now. I can also see that there are already questions. I will have a quick look. Yeah, to Aline, could you explain why you used Chromebooks in your case? Aline, you have to unmute yourself again.
Okay, there we go.
No, yeah, now we should hear you. Yeah.
All right. So why we decided to use social criteria in Chromebooks, was that the question?
Mm-hmm, yes.
Oh well, as I said, we did quite some research, and we did that overall risk assessment in the end of last year, and we from collaborating with the other municipalities, organizations, we knew that there were risks in the ICT industry, and Chromebooks were part of that. So it was natural when we did more research to use social criteria here. And we also wanted to be quite tough on the weighting of it as well.
Mm-hmm. And then maybe one more question. So who is monitoring the specifications and the qualification?
I'm so sorry, I couldn't hear what the question was.
The question was that who is monitoring the specification and the qualification?
So the follow-up.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we had sent out a self-report form to the supplier that we engage in the contract with, and we will have a meeting in a few weeks time where we will discuss, and I think we will focus primarily on these two products that they were mentioning in the qualification demand. We will start there and follow up those, and then we have outlined a few questions, mostly regarding social dialogue in their supply chain. So it will be followed up pretty soon, and as I said, also this self-report form will also give us some guidelines on what to dive deeper into.
Mm-hmm. Okay, great. Thanks for that. I think, yeah, our time is unfortunately over in a few minutes. So I would like to thank our speakers again for your time, for your lessons learned. And I would also like to thank you, the audience, that you joined in today. And I'm very excited. I'm very much looking forward to our second session in December. So you're all welcome to join again. And I see that there are some more questions, and I'm happy to welcome you to ask those questions also again in our second session. So stay tuned for December, and thank you very much again. Goodbye.